I never imagined my life would fall apart in a single evening, but everything changed the moment I walked into that bedroom. The air smelled like his cologne mixed with a scent I didn't recognize, sweet, floral, and definitely not mine. My steps slowed as I heard whispers, soft giggles, and the unmistakable rustling of sheets. My heart tightened, but my mind refused to believe it. After everything we went through, after every promise, every tear, every fight, he wouldn't dare betray me again. At least, that's what I tried to convince myself. But the truth doesn't wait for anyone. When I opened the door, I saw him, my ex-husband, shirtless, tangled in the sheets with another woman whose hair spilled over his chest like a dark wave. He froze. She froze. And I felt my entire world collapse into a silence so heavy it crushed my breath. His eyes widened, guilty, angry, defensive, everything but remorseful. "What are you doing here?" he snapped, as if I was the intruder, as if I was the one destroying something. My voice barely came out. "I came for the documents you said you left here. I didn't think I'd find this." He sat up aggressively, running a hand through his hair like I had inconvenienced him. The woman beside him gathered the sheets around her and avoided my gaze, but I didn't care about her. My focus was on him, the man who once promised to love me forever. "I told you not to show up unannounced," he said, his tone cold enough to sting. I swallowed hard, blinking away the burn behind my eyes. "We're divorced, Aiden. You don't get to talk to me like that. I came to get what's mine." The woman looked confused. "Wait, divorced?" Aiden glared at her, shutting her up with one look. I didn't say another word. I walked to the drawer, grabbed the envelope, and turned to leave. But just as I touched the doorknob, he spoke again, this time with a dangerous softness I hadn't heard in years. "You always ruin things for me." I didn't respond. I left the room, stepped into the hallway, and walked toward the stairs. My heartbeat was so loud it echoed in my ears. I just wanted to get out, drive home, lock my doors, and pretend none of this happened. But something about his tone stayed with me. It crawled under my skin like a warning. As I reached the front door, my phone buzzed. A message. No name. No profile picture. "You should have stayed quiet." My fingers trembled around the phone. I stared at the message, reading it again and again, trying to understand what it meant. Before I could think, the door behind me slammed open. "Leaving already?" Aiden stood there, wearing jeans but still shirtless, his expression unreadable. "I got what I came for. Just let me go." He stepped closer, and I felt myself involuntarily step back. "You saw something you shouldn't have. And now you think you can just walk out? What the hell are you talking about?" I whispered. He smirked, slow, unsettling, the kind he used only when he was planning something. "I warned you. I told you not to interfere in my life anymore. But you never listen." I took a breath, trying to stay calm. "You cheated on me. Again. This isn't my fault." His jaw tightened, and for a second, the mask slipped. There was something in his eyes I didn't recognize, something colder than anger, darker than resentment. "I'm leaving," I said firmly. But when I turned the doorknob, his hand slammed onto the wood beside me, stopping the door from moving even an inch. I felt trapped, boxed in by his presence, his energy, his unpredictability. He leaned closer, and for a moment, I smelled that same woman's perfume still clinging to his skin. It made me sick. "You weren't supposed to see her." I forced myself not to shake. "Move. Now." Instead, he grabbed my wrist. Hard. So hard I winced. "You're not going anywhere." Before I could scream, he pulled me back inside and shut the door with a force that rattled the windows. My breath hitched. "Aiden, stop. Let go of me." But he didn't. He dragged me toward the living room, ignoring my struggling, ignoring my fear. My heart hammered against my chest as panic clawed at my throat. When he finally released me, I stumbled and fell onto the couch, the impact knocking the wind out of me. "You always push me," he said, pacing back and forth like a man on the edge. "Even after the divorce, you couldn't let me live my life. You cheated. That's why we divorced." I snapped, my voice breaking. He stopped walking. Slowly. Deliberately. His eyes locked onto mine, and what I saw there sent a chill down my spine. "You think cheating was the reason?" "No. You were the reason. Always you." "I didn't come here to fight," I said gently, trying a different approach. "Just let me leave." He shook his head. "Not after what you saw." My stomach dropped. What does that even mean? Aiden took his phone out of his pocket, showed me something on the screen, then quickly turned it away before I could fully register it. I only caught a glimpse, a picture of him with a group of men I didn't recognize. Their faces blurred. A location tag turned off. Something dangerous, something secret. "You weren't supposed to see that," he said quietly. "What are you involved in?" He didn't answer. Instead, he stepped closer, his voice lowering into something terrifyingly calm. "You're coming with me." I froze. My body went numb. "What?" Before the word fully left my mouth, he reached behind the couch, grabbed something, duct tape, rope, I couldn't even process it, and my instincts exploded in panic. I tried to stand, but he pushed me back down. "Aiden, please, don't do this. You should have stayed out of my business," he whispered. I screamed. I kicked. I tried to fight back. But he was stronger, angrier, desperate. And desperation makes people dangerous. In seconds, my wrists were tied. My mouth taped. My tears blurred everything. The last thing I saw before everything faded into panic was him stuffing his phone into his pocket and grabbing his car keys. And then the words that would haunt me forever. "If you hadn't caught me cheating, none of this would have happened." The world became a blur of motion, fear, and muffled screams as Aiden dragged me toward the garage. The cold air hit my skin when the door opened, and the sound of the metal hinge creaking made my heart throb even harder. The rope around my wrists cut into my skin, and the tape over my mouth tasted like chemicals. I tried to look at him, to remind him I was human, someone he once loved, someone he once swore to protect. But he didn't look at me, not with kindness, not with hesitation. Only calculation. He shoved me into the back seat of his SUV. My shoulder hit the leather so hard I gasped behind the tape. He reached in, tightening the knot that tied my wrists to the door handle. "Stop struggling," he muttered, like I was annoying him, like my fear was inconvenient. I whimpered, and he finally looked at me in the rearview mirror. His eyes were dark, almost empty. "You shouldn't have come," he said softly. A strange softness, almost pity, but the kind you see right before something terrible happens. The engine started, and the garage door slowly lifted. I watched the sliver of daylight widen, wishing someone, anyone, would walk by. But no one did. The street was quiet, peaceful, painfully normal. The kind of day where families take walks, kids ride bikes, and neighbors trim their hedges. And here I was, tied and gagged by my ex-husband, being taken to God knows where. The car rolled out, the garage door shut behind us, and that was the moment it hit me, I wasn't going home today. Maybe I wasn't going home ever again. Aiden drove silently. Everything about him was controlled. His breathing. His posture. His grip on the steering wheel. Like he had planned this. Like he had been waiting for the right moment. I watched houses pass by through blurry tears. I tried to scream again, but the tape made it useless. No one could hear me. After a few minutes, he spoke. Still calm. Too calm. "You weren't supposed to see her. You weren't supposed to see the phone. Those men," he stopped himself, tightening his jaw. My heart pounded. What men? What was he hiding? What had he gotten himself into? He continued driving, taking turns I didn't recognize. Streets I had never seen. Farther and farther away from town. I glanced around, desperate for something, a landmark, a sign, anything to ground me. But he kept driving into areas with no shops, no people, barely any houses. Just trees and quiet roads. You always pushed me, he murmured, almost to himself. You always needed answers, always had to know everything. You couldn't ever just stay out of things. I wanted to scream that I never pushed him, that I only wanted honesty. But my voice was trapped inside me. He glanced into the mirror again. I didn't want to do this. Not to you. But you forced my hand. I shook my head violently. Tears streamed down my cheeks. He ignored them. Aiden slowed the car as we approached a long dirt road leading into a wooded area. He turned down it without hesitation. The SUV bounced over the uneven ground, branches scraping the sides like fingernails. The deeper we went, the darker it became. Sunlight barely reached the forest floor. When he finally stopped, I felt the air leave my lungs. A small cabin stood ahead. Old. Abandoned looking. Windows boarded. Roof sagging. The kind of place where people disappear. Aiden stepped out and slammed the door. My pulse raced so fast it hurt. He opened my door, leaned in, and for a moment, just stared at me. Like he was trying to remember what I used to mean to him. But whatever memory he searched for, it didn't stop him. He cut the rope tying me to the door handle but kept my wrists bound. Then he yanked me out of the car so forcefully my knees buckled. I tried to steady myself, but he grabbed my arm and dragged me toward the cabin. Leaves crunching beneath my feet. Wind whispering through the trees. My muffled sobs. That was all I heard. When we reached the door, he kicked it open. Dust swirled in the air. The inside was worse than the outside, broken furniture, dirty walls, a single flickering bulb hanging from the ceiling. He pulled me inside and slammed the door behind us. He pushed me into a wooden chair and tied my wrists to the armrests. Then my ankles. The tape stayed on my mouth. My breath came in sharp, panicked bursts. Aiden stepped back, running his hands through his hair. For the first time, he looked nervous. Not guilty, nervous. Like he was afraid of something bigger than what he was doing to me. You don't understand, he said. I'm in too deep. I tried to keep you out of it. I thought if you stayed away after the divorce, none of this would touch you. I blinked rapidly, trying to tell him with my eyes that I didn't understand, that none of this made sense, that this wasn't me trying to get involved, this was him dragging me into something terrifying. He paced. Those men I work with, they don't forgive mistakes. And what you saw, if they find out, they'll come after you. They'll come after me too. He stopped pacing and stared at me. I'm doing this to protect you. I shook my head frantically, my heart ripping inside my chest. This wasn't protection. This was terror. This was madness. This was him trying to justify something unforgivable. He walked closer, kneeling in front of me. I never stopped caring about you. Even after the divorce. But you left me no choice. I flinched away from his touch. He sighed and stood again. I need to call them. I need to figure out what to do next. Them. The men. Whoever they were. He stepped outside the cabin, leaving the door slightly open. I heard his voice, low and urgent, but I couldn't hear the words. The moment he was gone, I struggled against the ropes, twisting my wrists, ignoring the burn, the pain. I needed to get out. I needed to find a way. I scanned the room, looking for anything sharp, anything I could use. Nails on the wall. Broken glass on the floor. A rusted metal hook near the window. If I could reach it, maybe I could cut through the ropes. Footsteps approached. I froze. The door creaked open, and Aiden stepped back inside, his face pale, eyes wild. "They're coming," he said. "And I don't know if I can stop them." My blood ran cold. He walked toward me slowly, his voice cracking for the first time. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't want it to end like this." I tried to scream behind the tape. He reached for something behind him. And that was when a second car pulled up outside. Aiden's eyes widened. "They're early," he whispered. Aiden stepped away from me like the sound of the approaching car had physically pushed him back. I could see the panic spreading across his face, the way his hands trembled and his breathing shifted into short, sharp bursts. He wasn't afraid of me. He wasn't afraid of what he'd done. He was afraid of whoever was outside. The engine stopped. A heavy door slammed. Then another. Footsteps, slow, deliberate, purposeful, crunched over the dry leaves scattered on the ground. Aiden swallowed hard, his jaw tightening as he backed away from the windows. I tried to shift in the chair, but the ropes were too tight, slicing deeper into my skin with every movement. Aiden's eyes darted toward me, and for once, there was no anger, no resentment. Just pure, unfiltered fear. "Don't make a sound," he whispered, even though my mouth was taped shut. Then he bent down and grabbed something from under the broken table, a metal pipe, rusted at the edges. His hands shook as he gripped it. The footsteps grew louder. Aiden positioned himself near the door, pressing his back against the wall like he was bracing for impact. My heart pounded so violently it sounded like a drum echoing through the empty cabin. The air was so still, so thick, I felt like it was suffocating me. The doorknob twisted. Aiden raised the pipe, his breath catching. The door slowly, silently pushed inward. A tall man stepped inside, dressed in all black. His boots were muddy, his jacket heavy, his face hidden under a baseball cap pulled low over his eyes. But even with his face partially covered, I could tell one thing instantly: this man was not here to negotiate. His presence felt dangerous, cold, unrelenting. He didn't scan the room. He didn't hesitate. He walked in like he already knew what he came for. Aiden lowered the pipe just a little. "You're early," he said, voice cracking. The man didn't answer. He closed the door behind him with a quiet click. Then he turned his head toward me. Only slightly. But that was enough for me to feel his gaze sweep over me like a blade. Aiden stepped forward. "Don't look at her. This isn't her fault. She didn't mean to see anything." The man finally spoke, his voice calm in a way that made it even more terrifying. "That's not how this works." I tried to pull my wrists free again, but the rope only dug deeper, burning my skin. My breath hitched behind the tape. Aiden noticed and stepped between us. "You said you'd give me time," Aiden insisted. His voice was loud, desperate. "You said I could fix this." "You had time," the man replied. "You wasted it." Aiden's hand tightened around the pipe. "Don't touch her. She has nothing to do with this." The man tilted his head slightly. "Everything is a risk. Loose ends are risks." I felt the blood drain from my face. Aiden was shaking now, sweat dripping down his forehead. "She won't talk," Aiden said. "I'll take care of it. I'll make sure she disappears for a while, far away. You won't even know she exists." The man sighed, as if Aiden's desperation bored him. "The problem is, I already know she exists." He took one step forward. One heavy, slow, terrifying step. Aiden swung the pipe, not at the man, but at the wall beside him, as if threatening him would change anything. I said, "Don't touch her." The man didn't flinch. "You think you can protect her after what you did? After betraying us? Your fear is louder than your loyalty." Aiden froze. The pipe slipped from his fingers and clattered to the floor. Betraying us. The words echoed in my mind. Whatever Aiden was involved in, it wasn't just shady. It was bigger. Darker. Organized. And now I was in the middle of it. The man walked toward me slowly, each step sending a wave of dread through my body. I tried to scream through the tape, the sound coming out muffled and broken. Tears streamed down my cheeks as I tried to move, tried to shrink away, but I was trapped in the chair. Aiden lunged at the man with his bare hands. They clashed, Aiden pushing him back, shouting something I couldn't understand. The man barely reacted. He shoved Aiden back with one arm, sending him crashing into the table. Aiden staggered but tried again. "Run," he yelled at me, even though I couldn't run, tied to the chair. The man grabbed Aiden by the collar and slammed him against the wall. The drywall cracked, dust raining down over them. Aiden gasped for air, clawing at the man's grip. "You think you're a hero now?" the man hissed. Aiden tried to speak, but the man punched him in the stomach so hard the air left his lungs in a painful burst. Aiden collapsed to his knees, coughing, struggling to breathe. The man turned toward me again. "No," Aiden wheezed. He crawled forward, grabbing the man's leg. "Please, don't hurt her." The man kicked him aside like he was nothing. Aiden hit the floor hard, curling into himself, groaning. The man reached out and touched the chair I was tied to. Just one finger, tapping the wood. Testing it. Assessing it. Like he was deciding whether to take the chair with me in it or cut me loose first. "Untie her," he said calmly. Aiden looked up, confused. "What?" "Untie her," the man repeated. "We're taking her." Aiden froze. His eyes widened, and he swallowed hard, shaking his head weakly. "No, please, don't." The man crouched down, grabbed Aiden by the hair, and lifted his head so they were eye to eye. "You owed us. And you tried to run. She's the price." Aiden's voice cracked. "She doesn't deserve this." The man's grip tightened. "Neither did we." Aiden closed his eyes, defeated. Broken. Then he looked at me, really looked at me. Pain. Regret. Guilt. Love. Everything he never said after the divorce was suddenly in his expression. He crawled to me slowly, hands trembling, and started untying the knot around my ankles first. His fingers shook so much he struggled to loosen it. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I'm so sorry." The man watched impatiently, tapping his boot on the floor. Aiden moved to the ropes around my wrists. His hands brushed mine briefly. Cold. Shaking. Desperate. The left rope loosened. Then the right. As soon as my hands were free, the man grabbed my arm. Aiden acted on instinct. He threw himself at the man with everything he had left. They crashed to the floor, struggling, grunting, fighting for control. The man reached for something under his jacket. Aiden screamed, "Run! Now!" I stumbled to my feet, dizzy, terrified, shaking so violently I could barely move. The man pulled out a gun. Aiden grabbed his arm. A single shot exploded inside the cabin. I froze. The world went silent. The gunshot rang through the cabin so loudly it felt like the world cracked open. For a split second, everything froze, the dust hanging in the air, the flickering bulb, my own breath caught halfway in my throat. I didn't know who had been hit. I didn't know if I should run, scream, or drop to the floor. My legs trembled beneath me, barely holding me upright. Aiden fell first. His body hit the wooden floor with a heavy thud, and a sharp gasp tore from my lungs as I staggered toward him. The man stood over him, gun still raised, his expression unreadable. Aiden's hand pressed against his side, blood seeping between his fingers. His breaths came out in short, broken sounds, shallow, strained, painful. "No," I whispered behind the tape still stuck to my mouth. My voice cracked into silence. My body shook violently as I dropped to my knees beside him. Aiden's eyes found mine. There was something in them, fear, regret, desperation, but beneath it all, something he hadn't shown me in months, maybe years. Something almost like love. His lips parted, but no words came out, just a low groan as he tried to breathe through the pain. The man looked down at him with disinterest. "You should have stayed loyal," he said coldly. "It didn't have to come to this." Aiden coughed, blood staining his lips. "Shut up," he wheezed. He reached out, grabbing my arm with trembling fingers. He tried to pull me closer, and I leaned in without thinking, my tears falling onto his cheek. His grip tightened weakly. He mouthed something, 3 words I couldn't hear but didn't need to. I knew exactly what he said. The man stepped forward and grabbed my arm again, pulling me away from Aiden so violently I nearly fell backward. I clawed at his hand, trying to scream through the tape, but he didn't care. He hauled me upright like I was nothing more than an object. "We're leaving," he said. Aiden tried to move. He tried to push himself up. He tried to stop him. He failed. "Don't touch her," he gasped. The man looked down at him one last time. "You're done." He turned, dragging me toward the door, but Aiden didn't give up. With the last of his strength, he grabbed the man's ankle. The man kicked him in the ribs, but Aiden didn't let go. He pulled again, harder this time, forcing the man to stumble. The man's grip on me loosened. I didn't think, I ran. I bolted toward the back of the cabin, my feet slipping on the dusty wooden floor. My heart pounded so loud it felt like an explosion inside my chest. Behind me I heard the man yelling, heard the sound of boots hitting the floor, heard Aiden groan in pain as he tried to hold him back again. I reached the small back window, cracked but not boarded like the others. My hands fumbled against the latch. It stuck. I pushed harder. The metal squeaked. I could hear the man closing in behind me, heavy footsteps growing faster and louder. The latch snapped open. I shoved the window up just enough to squeeze through. Cold air hit my face as I climbed onto the sill. My foot slipped. The man's hand brushed my back. I jumped. The ground rushed up beneath me. I landed hard on my shoulder and rolled into the dirt, pain shooting through my arm. I scrambled to my feet, ignoring the throbbing ache, and stumbled into the thick woods. Branches whipped against my skin. Leaves crunched beneath my shoes. I didn't know where I was going, I just knew I had to run. The forest was dark, the ground uneven, roots rising like traps waiting to grab my ankles. Tears blurred my vision, but I pushed forward, gasping for breath. Behind me, the man crashed through the window. He was coming. I ducked behind a wide tree trunk and pressed myself against it, my chest heaving. My wrists, still raw and marked from the rope, throbbed painfully. The tape was still over my mouth, trapping my cries inside me. I listened. His footsteps were heavy, fast, purposeful. He wasn't searching, he was hunting. I peeked around the tree. I saw him scanning the woods, moving with control and certainty. I backed away slowly, inch by inch, trying not to make a sound. My heel stepped on a twig. It snapped. He turned instantly. I ran. Branches slapped my face. Rocks tore through my shoes. My lungs burned as if I was breathing fire. The forest seemed endless, merciless. I didn't know if I was getting closer to safety or deeper into danger. I heard the man curse behind me. His footsteps grew louder. Closer. Then I saw it. A road. A narrow strip of gray running between the trees. I forced my legs to move faster, pushing through the final stretch. I reached the edge of the woods and stumbled onto the asphalt, turning left and right, desperate for a car, a house, a sign, something. Nothing. Silence. But the silence didn't last. The man burst through the trees. I turned and ran along the road, every nerve in my body screaming. My vision blurred from tears. My legs wobbled but refused to stop. I didn't know how far I'd gone before I heard it, a faint sound, distant but unmistakable. A car engine. Headlights appeared over the hill, getting closer. I ran into the middle of the road, waving my arms, praying they would see me. The tape muffled my screams, but I didn't stop trying. The car slowed. Then stopped. The man was only a few feet away now, closing in like a shadow made of hate. The driver got out, a woman in her 30s, eyes wide with shock. "Oh my God. Are you okay?" I shook my head violently, pointing behind me. The man emerged from the darkness. The woman froze. Before she could react, I grabbed her hand and pulled her, stumbling into the driver's seat. She understood instantly. She jumped in, slammed the door, and hit the lock. The man sprinted toward the car. "Go." I tried to scream through the tape. "Go." She floored the gas. Gravel sprayed behind us as the car shot forward. The man's hand slammed against the window as we sped away, his furious shout fading into the night. I collapsed against the seat, shaking uncontrollably. The woman looked at me, horrified. "Oh my God, who did this to you? What happened?" I couldn't speak. I couldn't breathe. My body trembled with the last drops of fear. She gently peeled the tape off my mouth. My skin burned, but the moment it came off, I gasped for air. I whispered one word. "Aiden." Police sirens echoed in the distance. Hours later, when they found the cabin, Aiden was still alive. Barely. He looked at me as they loaded him into the ambulance, his voice barely a whisper. "I tried to save you." Tears flooded my eyes. "Why did you do it?" His lips trembled. "Because you were the only good thing I ever had." And then his eyes closed. I don't know if he survived the night. I don't know if the man will return. But I know one thing. Catching him cheating saved me from a lie. And nearly cost me my life.